The White House is scrambling after a reporter was included in a text chat about military plans to attack Yemen. And the Trump administration is invoking the state secrets privilege in a case involving deportation flights of migrants. Good morning. I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. The White House National Security Council says it is reviewing an incident. A journalist says he was apparently inadvertently added to a group chat where top administration officials discussed planned U.S. military action. NPR's Tamara Keith reports.
Atlantic Magazine's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, somehow got included in a group chat on the messaging app Signal, where the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, and others were discussing plans for an attack on Houthi rebels in Yemen. When asked about the story and the breach hours after it came to light, President Trump said it was news to him.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
A spokesman for the National Security Council confirms the chat, which broke with long-standing national security protocol, appears to be authentic. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
The Trump administration is now invoking state secrets privilege in a case involving deportation flights. NPR's Joel Rose reports a judge is continuing to demand more information about them.
Federal Judge James Boasberg has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from deporting alleged Venezuelan gang members under a rarely used wartime law. And Boasberg is pushing the Trump administration to explain whether it defied his orders when it allowed 2 deportation flights to continue. But the Justice Department has stonewalled, refusing to answer the judge's questions about the timing and other operational details of the flights. Now, the Justice Department is invoking the state secrets privilege, arguing in a court filing that answering the judge's questions, even under seal, would harm, quote, diplomatic and national security concerns. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
Meanwhile, in a related development, a U.S. appeals court panel heard the Trump administration's challenge to Judge Boasberg's order about using the wartime power to deport the migrants. But one appeals court panel judge told administration lawyers, quote, Nazis got better treatment under the wartime power. The Trump administration lawyers sharply refuted that. The wife of Vice President Vance is to visit Greenland this week. Mrs. Vance will be joined by Trump administration officials on a trip that is seen as fraught. President Trump has repeatedly said the U.S. will take over Greenland. The world's largest island is rich in critical minerals. But NPR's Deepa Shivaram says Greenland is a territory of Denmark.
In an interview with a Greenlandic newspaper over the weekend, the Prime Minister of Greenland said that the visit from members of the Trump administration was very aggressive. He said that Greenland has to face the seriousness of the situation of the U.S. wanting to annex them. Now, Trump, for his part, says this isn't a provocation. He says it's a purely friendly visit and claimed that the U.S. was invited to visit Greenland, though NPR is not able to confirm if there was an invite.
NPR's Deepa Shivaram reporting. The DNA testing company 23andMe is seeking bankruptcy protection. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports the move raises questions about the private data it has collected.
The biotech firm that allows users to spit in a tube and send away the sample for DNA analysis is seeking a buyer. It comes a few months after the California company laid off roughly 40% of its staff and 2 years after a data breach affected millions of customer accounts. Data privacy experts are now raising concerns about what could happen to the sensitive genetic information of 15 million users if 23andMe is sold. The company says customers can still delete their data and close their accounts if they choose, and has vowed to remain in operation through the bankruptcy process. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
In women's NCAA college basketball, the Sweet 16 teams are set, but the tournament was overshadowed last night when one of college basketball's biggest stars suffered an injury. Greg Eklund explains.
Southern California sophomore Juju Watkins, a first-team All-American and this season's Big Ten Player of the Year, had to be carried off the floor in the first quarter of the Trojans' second-round game against Mississippi State. Watkins was grabbing her right knee when she was down, which stirred up a reaction from her coach, Lindsey Gottlieb.
I'd be lying if I told you that I wasn't rattled, seeing Juju on the floor and crying. This is a human game.
Despite what the team describes as a season-ending injury to Watkins, USC rallied to build its lead and easily handled Mississippi State 96-59. For NPR News, I'm Greg Eklund.
I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News.